the owner, like the entrepreneur, the business owner, the founder needs to own every line of code from the very beginning. This is not something that you should ever have to ask for from your developer, because what happens if that developer wins the lottery? Moves to Hawaii. You never hear from them again.
Or there's a breakdown in relationships. I've heard some horror
Yes.
stories recently, not just of app developers, but web developers that have held websites hostage, that have held other IP hostage because the contract was restrictive, but also they didn't actually understand what to ask for and take ownership of it and then give access to the other individual.
Yes. And you don't need to understand how it works. You just need to have the keys to your own kingdom. And if you don't have that, you're leaving yourself wide open.
Welcome to the Karas Wright Show. I'm Karas Wright, and we're going to have a really candid conversation today. And it is built off of a couple of things that I've noticed as I'm talking with business owners and founders over the last couple of weeks is we're still running. We're running on fumes, we're running on empty, and a lot of that's stemming from not having direction. Direction in the strategy that you're wanting, direction in the systems that you're needing to keep yourself accountable, but also in the tech when you have a brilliant idea. And so I have Rea Hailley here, the CEO of New Idea Machine. And I'm so excited for this conversation, Rea, because we have had some great interactions over the last little bit about some of the pitfalls business owners are really finding themselves in, and the importance of providing value before you start working with them.
Yes.
So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Karas. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Before we dive into the pitfalls, though, tell me about yourself, New Idea Machine. Give me the rundown.
Yes. So I always tell people that I consider myself the accidental CEO because I never expected to be here. And I'm not technical myself. My first pivot into tech was working with Shopify and working with high-value merchants around that $50 million mark annually. And working there, it was like drinking from a fire hose. There was so much to learn every day. I felt like I was constantly learning a new language. But I'm an overachiever, so I couldn't, failure just wasn't an option. And I did rather well and grew my portfolio to 90 million within the first year. And then it was time for me to leave Shopify because I was quickly burning out. And a few years before that, during the pandemic, my partner and I were on a walk, and he was complaining about how difficult it is for non-technical business owners to do anything with tech to help their business because they just don't know what questions to ask or where to turn. And, I wanted him to just do something about it. So I just said to him, just do something about it. And he looked at me and he said, well, only if you do it with me. And I thought, oh gosh, okay, I can't let him, I can't back out now. So of course I had to say, yes, I'll do something. And so we launched New Idea Machine specifically to help non-technical founders and business owners navigate the world of tech so that they can grow their business. And fast forward 5 years, here we are.
It's such a needed thing.
Yes.
Now, for those who aren't familiar with New Idea Machine, what do you do?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So to sum it up, it's automations, integrations, and custom software development. Now, for your average business owner, they don't really care about any of those things. They just think that I have a bottleneck. I have work backing up. I'm wasting time on administrative tasks. And I'm really tired of overpaying for these subscriptions, for off-the-shelf tools. I just need somebody to help me make sense of this mess. And that's okay. If that's as far as their knowledge goes, that's perfectly okay. We can certainly go in and help them identify how to streamline their workflow, so that they can scale without necessarily having to hire additional staff.
One of the conversations that you and I had off camera just before we started was the importance of providing value. And you and I are both in alignment where there's a lot of businesses out there and saying, I'll help you, but you've got to pay me this much first before I'll even give you a hand.
Yes.
And even your eye flutter there is like, oh, that is
Yes.
not resonating.
Yes.
So,
I cannot stand that. As a business owner myself, I know that there are areas that we need help with. And I don't always have time to seek service providers out. Usually, they come my way and I look into them. And more often than not, they say to me, well, I can help you. I'm not going to tell you how, but I can help you. And all you have to do is hire me for a day or so, and we'll do a deep dive into your business. And then I will show you how I can help you. But then it's, you have to commit to me for several months, and I'll help you get to where you want to be. There are no guarantees. You're just going to have to trust me and take a gamble. And to me, that's not okay. That's not how I believe business should be done. With our clients or anyone that comes to speak to us, we go above and beyond in providing them the information they need and the tools they need completely free of charge just to help them. And if it's not the right time for us to work together, that's okay. And also, if there's someone else that can help them better than we can, I will happily make that recommendation. Because I believe that, when the time is right, everything will line up and the right clients will come our way and the partnership will be beautiful and go very smoothly and everyone will be happy. And those are the types of situations I want to be in, the types of clients I want to have. I never want to have a client with us if they're not happy with us. I want them to succeed and thrive.
Yeah. The philosophy I take is that there comes a point in time in every business owner where you've got to move. You're either at that, I need to do it myself, either because I need the knowledge, there's a financial constraint, or something else is in mind. And so the ability to have that information accessible until they're ready to make that next step is really, really important. So I love how for you, you've got that on your website in terms of the resources. I have a business reality check that gives that opportunity to go and find those bottlenecks in the business and kind of go, okay, here's that. And then the next step. Because the reality is we also need to put food on the shelf and keep our lights running.
Yes.
So there is a value exchange that happens. But it's also making sure that until you get to that point, we want to make sure you're covered.
Yes.
And I had read something from Alex Hermosi was actually talking about a lot of billionaires will do that in a really easy way by either here's the Audible, here's a book that you can buy for $50 to help you until you get to that point.
Yeah.
Or here's resources that we have on the website that are free. And those are ways of helping. And I don't think we always think of it in that way.
Yes. Yes. And it's needed because when, more and more businesses succeed, we all benefit.
Yes.
And there's so much work out there that I don't think we ever have to approach it with that scarcity mindset. There's more than enough for everybody. But also, why not focus on what you're great at and, provide that to your clients and let other people who are better at other things provide those services to your clients as well. I love collaboration. I love working with like-minded, values-first service providers. And I will happily recommend clients to them because I know that they will be well looked after and taken care of. And again, to me, it's all about, how is the client benefiting? I want them to succeed as quickly as possible, as cost effectively as possible. And it does take a village. I can't do it on my own. I need other service providers to help our clients get to where they want to be.
Yeah, it's so true. You're bringing up reminding me of a story. My dad, in one of his retirement jobs, worked at Home Depot and would constantly refer people over to other organizations or other businesses if they didn't have it. His bosses would constantly come and go, Dick, what are you doing? And he'd be like, well, they're going to come back. Just trust me,
Yeah.
and guaranteed they would come back to see him to do the next thing over and over again. And so that really stuck in my mind as a business owner, even when I worked in corporate and as a bank manager, that you give out more, it is going to come back in return.
Yes.
And so I have a lot of other coaches look at me, go, why do you partner with so many business coaches? Why do you have so many business coaches on your podcast? Well, it's because of, I don't believe in a scarcity mindset. I believe that we all have value to drive, and where my expertise ends, somebody else is going to pick up.
Yes.
So I really applaud you for taking a look at that. How can we all succeed together?
Yes. And I think there's a massive shift happening where, we're definitely leaning more towards that. I think before it was every person for themselves, sales first instead of, you know, being of service first. But there's definitely a shift happening, um, and I'm glad. Like it should have happened a long, long time ago.
I agree. And I'm so excited to see this come into business. I'm also excited that you sent me 9 common pitfalls that you see come in here. And as I was reading through this, these translate into many industries, not just the tech industry. So do you want to play a little bit?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So the first thing you wrote down here and shared with us is that common pitfall is that having their ideas stolen.
Yes. So this is a big one. And it's no fault of the founder or the business owner, but before you talk to someone about your idea or how you run your business, that's your intellectual property. You want to protect it. So the person that you're speaking to should always offer to have you sign a non-disclosure agreement or a mutual non-disclosure agreement. This is critical. Like, we will not speak to anyone about anything sensitive without having this signed first. If a service provider does not offer you that, ask for it. And if they can't provide one, then please do not discuss your idea. It's just not worth it. Also, be very cautious if you are working with anyone overseas, because North American laws do not apply outside of North America. So that means your idea is not necessarily protected. I don't know how that would work if you do sign an NDA with them. It may or may not be protected. Unfortunately, I've spoken to founders who have had their ideas stolen. They paid quite a bit of money and went in with good faith, believing that this agency was building their application. And $100,000 in, the agency ghosted them, and they lost everything.
That's such a horrible feeling. What I want to add to that is having the structures in place and the systems in place to be able to follow all of those.
Yes.
So having a central source where you are keeping all your NDAs, where you are categorizing what that conversation was, documenting the information, also translating that information to other areas of business. So anytime you're dealing outside of your jurisdiction, take the time to research and understand.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. I love what you had written there, building overseas and no DNA or no NDA, like such an important aspect. The second thing that you bring up is paying twice for their app.
Yes.
Compliance and security.
Yes. So this one is often overlooked. And I don't think it's done maliciously. Software developers are there to build. So when you speak to an agency or a firm or even an individual software developer, they're very good at building software. They usually do not have the business background that's needed. And so they are trusting everything you're telling them. So they're basically order takers. So if you say, build this feature, they say absolutely, and they build it. They will not question whether or not that feature is needed or if it's better pushed off to version 2 or 3 because it'll be more cost effective to, build it sustainably. So you really need to be cautious when it comes to how you're building your application. Compliance and security is often something that is an afterthought. So founders will think, well, I'll just build my minimum viable product and then I'll worry about, security and compliance. The problem with that is that you are now substantially increasing your costs. So, for example, doing security and compliance, after you build your minimum viable product, you're looking at $30,000 or more. Doing it prior to development, so before a single line of code is built, you might be spending $3,000 to $4,000. And that's because the expert, who needs to be independent, not the developer, somebody who's certified in this area, will tell the developer how to build the application so that it is very, very secure. And if you're handling anything sensitive like financial information, medical information, anything that you would be mortified if it was leaked, you need to have that independent audit done.
What's coming up for me as I'm thinking about this is actually not just the post cost if you do it afterwards, but also the potential legal ramifications,
Oh, yes.
reputational risk, and it may be greater than that 30,000.
Absolutely.
It may cost you your actual business.
Oh, 100%. And fines, lawsuits. So you may have heard of the T-app fiasco that happened last year in the States.
Expand on that just for folks who don't know it.
Somebody had built a ride-sharing app for women. Good intentions behind it. They wanted women to get from point A to point B safely while giving other women a source of income. But they built it themselves using AI. So they vibe coded it. They were not developers. They did not consider security or compliance whatsoever. And in order to use this app, you had to upload government-issued ID, so driver's license or passport. And they were hacked. They had over 1,000 users. They were hacked, and every user's profile was leaked onto the dark web. So their names, their passport numbers, their addresses. Of course, that business had to be shut down. I'm not sure. I haven't followed up lately to see if there's any lawsuits, but I wouldn't be surprised. So yeah, you're definitely gambling with your business and your clients' lives if you avoid this critical step.
Also, that extends if you become somebody who's using, or if you have a business that has an app and you're extending that to others.
Yes.
That's huge. That risk amplifies.
Yes.
And so let's step before they even start doing that first line of coding. You mentioned going and having that expert individual look at the safety or at the compliance aspect of things. But who else would you recommend a business owner sit down and talk to before they even come and see an expert to build out their app? Or if they are wanting to venture on doing it their own, that they need to take into consideration?
You need to speak to someone who is not afraid to tell you it's a bad idea or give you critical feedback as to how to build it better. That is something we do when people come and speak to us long before they become clients. We will look at the business aspect of what they're building. We will look at budgeting. We will look at the architecture. What's the most cost-effective way to build this? And we will always tell them to focus on the absolutely necessary features to make the application work, to test it out. Everything else can come later. You do not want to put all your eggs in one basket. You definitely focus on what's needed to bring you revenue immediately, and then you can always iterate as many times as needed.
So you need a thought partner that's going to challenge you.
Yes.
So whether that's a business advisor, whether that's your spouse, your brother, like probably not your spouse and brother, but somebody that you know is going to push back on you.
Yeah.
You need to have maybe a conversation with legal, a compliance and security person that you trust.
Yes. Yeah. Or if they come and speak to us, we will put them in touch with someone.
So you've got a suite of partners.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, they're more than welcome to find their own as well.
Amazing. So the third thing that you wrote down here is missing out on government funding, and who doesn't need help and support with grants.
Yes. And this is something that business owners don't know. Founders may have heard of it. There's always government funding available, and it's non-dilutive. So you do not have to give up a part of your business to tap into this. There is a process to apply. You can certainly apply on your own. You just need to do a bit of research. If it's something you don't wish to take on, there's lots of people in the industry that will help with that. We can certainly recommend a few people that we found very trustworthy. And there's also shred credits if they're in Canada. So the federal government will actually provide a rebate of up to 33% on innovative builds. And innovative builds, basically it's anything that doesn't exist. So even something as common as a CRM can qualify for shred credits if it follows your particular workflow. We built our own CRM because I didn't like what was out there. Salesforce was just too much of a beast for what I needed to do, and I have a very particular process. So we built a CRM that follows that process. And I thought there's no way possible that this CRM would be eligible for shred credits. Turns out it is. So if you can get some of that money back, why not?
I love the personal example of that. And then now I've got a few ideas churning in my head as well. And I think it's that missing out on government funding is something that we all need to actually take a look at regularly because it changes frequently.
Yes.
So looking at and tapping into different individuals, I have an individual that I partner with, oddly, is here in Okotoks, who will help source out that grant funding.
Nice.
Which is fantastic. The next one that you've got written down here is fixed pricing, scope creep, and change order fees. You're bringing me back to my old banker build construction. So same thing in houses as it is in building apps.
Yes. Psychologically, it's always, it feels better to know that I'm only going to have to pay this much to get what I want. The reality of it is, fixed fees usually have a 30% padding in there for unknowns. And also, if there's any pivots that are required along the way, there are change order fees for that. So, the entrepreneur is going into this agreement thinking, I only have to pay this much money, but by the end of it, they've paid a whole lot more. So I have found that a better approach is to pay for time and material only. So if you need to pivot 5 different times or 100 times, it doesn't matter because you're only paying for time and material and you have control over how much you're spending. Which brings me to the other point, but when it comes to contracts, and this fits in beautifully because if you're entering a contract that locks you in for any amount of time, what happens when that relationship goes south? You're on the line for those monthly payments. And so now you're being forced to work with a team that may not necessarily understand your vision or your business, and you can't back out. So you definitely want the contract to be flexible to protect yourself. You need to be able to walk away at any point in time for any reason without penalty, and without your code being held hostage. Which brings me to another point. The owner, like the entrepreneur, the business owner, the founder, needs to own every line of code from the very beginning. This is not something that you should ever have to ask for from your developer, because what happens if that developer wins the lottery? Moves to Hawaii. You never hear from them again.
Or there's a breakdown in relationships. I've heard some horror stories recently, not just of app developers, but web developers that have held websites hostage, that have held other IP hostage because the contract was restrictive, but also they didn't actually understand what to ask for and take ownership of it and then give access to the other individual.
Yes, and you don't need to understand how it works. You just need to have the keys to your own kingdom. And if you don't have that, you're leaving yourself wide open. And unfortunately, and I've heard horror stories as well, Karas, and I can share one this is definitely the worst horror story I've heard. I spoke to a founder who's, top of her field, brilliant woman. And she hired a developer that she trusted and that was highly recommended, did sign the non-disclosure agreement, entered into this contract. But unfortunately, the developer built her platform on his server and he controls her email. So she later discovered that he was using her platform to build and run a competing business against her. And she cannot access her platform whatsoever. She has no idea where it's being stored, how to get it, and she blamed herself. And this is the part that really upset me. She blamed herself for being non-technical, and it is not her fault whatsoever.
No.
She trusted someone. It's their job as a service provider to act in good faith and to educate her and let her know what she needs to know, and actually say to her, I should not be owning this. You should have control over this, and I'll show you how to give me access.
Mm-hmm. There's so much there. I want to take a step back with the shame that happened and that she was experiencing in this moment where she was really, truly just trusting someone
Yes.
that she felt was worthy of supporting her and was betrayed.
Yes.
How does somebody come back from when they are bamboozled's the word that's coming to mind?
Yes. It's very, very hard. So if you can financially recover from that, most people cannot. Then you have a lot of trauma to deal with, and you need to find somebody who will now basically rescue the project. And, this is why I went out of my way to create resources to teach people what types of signs they need to watch out for and what questions they need to ask, even if they're not technical. Because knowing what to ask will give you that peace of mind and will help you understand the process that you are entering into. Without that knowledge, you're really going in blind, and you just can't do that, especially when there's money on the line.
So that's just the financial aspect of it. But there's also the emotional aftermath that comes.
Yes.
So you've got to bounce back from that.
Yes. And it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time. We've rescued a few projects, and the clients that we work with really do have PTSD. So it takes us 2 to 3 times longer to earn their trust and prove that we're not going to hurt them.
Yes, I have experienced that being a coach and consultant, both on the leadership and on the business side, because there's great people that in any industry, doesn't matter what industry, there are great experts. And then there are, unfortunately, the shadow side.
Yes.
That are not doing things for the right reasons, are really not the best individuals. I'm trying to censor myself here a little bit.
Yes.
But we need to take that time. And so for those individuals, it is going to take longer. We need to be patient. We need to be respectful, but also to say, not everybody's bad.
Yes, that is true. Not
Right?
everyone's bad.
Not everyone's bad.
And it's unfortunate that, they've had a bad experience, but you can definitely come back from it.
Yeah. So I want to just kind of level set here, because we just covered off long-term contracts, proprietary software lock-in. Let's talk about number 7, which is receiving an app that doesn't work.
Yes. So, okay, I'll share a real story. Last year we had someone come our way, and they said, we've been having this app built for a year now. We've spent $150,000, and we feel something's off. We can't prove it, but every time that we're given the new features added and we're testing it, it's not working, and it doesn't carry over to other parts of the application. And after $150,000 in a year of time, this should not be happening. Could you help us look under the hood and see what's going on? And so we did, and we were just shocked. So their project manager, who was local, the development team was overseas, assured the client that, security is taken care of, all the features are implemented, everything is just A-okay, and even provided documents, AI-generated documents, by the way, that said everything's fantastic. But when one of our senior developers was looking at it, none of it added up. None of it. And he went back to the client and said, I'm really sorry to say the report is completely false. Here are all the security holes. Here are all the problems. And and of course they were devastated. Like they knew enough to seek a second opinion. So one way to protect yourself around that is to be a part of the development process every step of the way. You should be having weekly or biweekly check-ins. You should be able to tinker with the application yourself, and you should be trying to break it. Why not? Find the holes, find the bugs before you release it to your clients. And that's something that we absolutely insist on. We ask the client to be as involved in the process as they want to. We strongly encourage them to be fully involved, so that they're constantly speaking to the developer directly and testing what's being built. Because if there is a problem, we want to address it immediately rather than after the product is released.
So I want to dig in on this on the psychological side of things, because people may be thinking that's micromanaging. And I want to be really clear that it is not.
No.
That is oversight. And there is a clear difference on it.
Yes.
Oversight is the matter of checking in to make sure that you are getting the results that you expect.
Yes.
Inspect what you expect is really an important aspect of that, whether it's a project that you are hiring out on somebody or whether it's a part of your own team. Oversight versus micromanaging is completely different. You also mentioned peeking under the hood, and I love this concept because it allows and gives business owners that opportunity to double check on their contract workers that they are hiring out. And so that really resonates with me because I'm working on a project with a business management group called Chaos, and we are bringing something to life that actually does that in accounting.
Nice.
Also in people management, in the operation side and whatnot, is that ability just to take a look at what is somebody else doing so that we can make sure, is it working? And if it is, great. And if it's not, here's some of the questions that you need to ask.
Yes, and address it now before it becomes a bigger problem.
Yes. And then I think the other aspect is like you're hiring out a business to do something for you. And so you have absolutely every right to question what's happening.
Definitely.
Question it, play around with it, try to break it. I'm the best beta tester ever, Rea. If you ever need somebody to beta test, I will find a way to break it.
Awesome.
But you have every opportunity to go in and do that. And if they're questioning that, that's a red flag.
It is. And there's a difference between a vendor and a partner.
Yes.
So a vendor will, happily take your money and give you something that may or may not be exactly what you want. A partner will work with you to get you exactly what you want.
I love that. That is such an important distinction because sometimes we misinterpret that. But also a lot of business owners are fearful of stepping in and asking for that check-in because they're worried that something's going to happen. And it is absolutely okay to do that.
Yes, and that goes back to that contract, right?
Yes.
So the contract needs to protect both parties, not just the service provider. So if you're checking in and the person you're working with is pushing back or ghosting, why?
Right.
Then they're not in it for the right reasons, and you're better off cutting your losses now and moving on.
And licking your wounds, but also asking yourself, okay, what did I learn from that experience so that I don't repeat that?
Yes, and it happens to all of us.
Oh.
It's happened to me a few times. You just trust the wrong people, but you definitely learn from it.
Yes. So we talked also about the importance of owning your own code, and I think that extends on absolutely anything. Code, your own website, your own everything.
Yes, even where your documents are being stored. So if someone's helping you with your business, is your information, that proprietary information, being stored on their drive or your drive? Being aware of that is crucial because hacks do happen, and I'm sure you don't want that information in your competitors' hands.
Right. And so that leads to number 9, lack of technical requirements.
Yes. So this is a big one. Business owners and founders will come to us and say, build me this application. And we do, absolutely. But we also provide technical requirements because what's that expression? You eat your own, I'm going to say baking instead of dog food.
Mhm.
If at any point the client wants to walk away for any reason and have someone else pick up where we left off, it's their legal right to do so.
Mhm.
They should not be prevented from doing so. But when you have someone else building your application, if they don't talk to you about technical requirements and documentation, sorry, I'm going to come back to technical requirements. I got the two mixed up. So if they don't talk to you about technical documentation, yeah, you have to ask why, because you need to be able to go to anywhere else. But when you're building an application, if I imagine I tell you, Karis, build me a house. And you're like, sure, Rea, not a problem. And I tell you nothing else. You're just going to build me what you think I want. You have no idea what my real budget is. You have no idea how many bedrooms I want, what kind of accessories or, finishings I want in the house. Unless you sit down with me and we go through everything. Do you want baseboards? How high? What color exactly? How many windows? What direction do you want them to face? There are all these little things that you have to consider. And if you've ever built a house, that process is quite unique because they'll even ask you what color grout you want. And I'm like, you want me to figure out the color grout? What are you talking about? But building an application is exactly the same. So having someone sit down with you, someone who is technical, and walking through the application to figure out exactly how it needs to function for every user and for yourself as well, and also how it might need to function in the future. So one example is reporting. People often forget about reporting, but when it comes to tax time, you need those reports to give to your accountant. Otherwise, your life is going to be very difficult. So knowing that ahead of time will allow the developer to build your application in a way that can accommodate not just what you need now, but what you need in the future. And again, build it in a cost-effective way. But many people skip the technical requirements part because they either don't know about it or they just don't want to pay the fee to get it done. And I can tell you that, having worked with so many different clients, even the most organized clients who've brushed off technical requirements gathering, ended up paying more and their application took more time to build than if they had just done the technical requirements. And like yourself, because we lead with value, we've actually built a tool that does that for our clients.
Mm.
And they don't have to pay for it. It's an AI tool. Their information remains confidential, but it'll walk them through that process just by asking them simple, non-technical questions, and then pulls all the information together and provides them with the necessary reports that they could take anywhere if they choose to.
Okay. Such an important aspect. And what you're really talking about is the beginning steps of project management. And when you take the time to understand the scope, the parameters, what the end goal is, track back, you're going to actually save time, save money, understand what your responsibility is as a business owner, what your partner's responsibility is to execute on that, understand what are small things along the way that might roadblocks that might pop up that you need to be aware of. And how are you going to navigate? I use a lot of travel analogies, right step being the business, but what if your engine breaks down? How are we going to navigate through that together?
Yes.
Yes. And so by taking that time up front, you save yourself grief, money, a lot of pain, and you understand what's happening.
Definitely. And honestly, you can't run a business any other way. Like if you lead, it's very easy to get very excited about building something new because you see the potential of, the new revenue stream or the new scalability or the competitive advantage. And it is exciting. And also you need to slow down and do the proper prep work so that you don't regret it down the road.
Put the right systems in place, the right structure in place, and you're going to succeed.
Yes.
What's one final closing thoughts you want people to know?
There are no dumb questions. Ask. Ask all the questions you can think of. Understand the process as much as possible. If you're speaking to the right service partner, they will not push back at all. They will happily answer all your questions because they understand that you're making a big decision and this is your business and your money on the line. They get it and they're going to happily help you.
Rea, thank you so much for joining me today. Where can we find you?
Thank you for having me, Karas, at newideamachine.com or reach out to me, Rea Hailley, on LinkedIn.
Hopefully, the first of many conversations.
Yes.
Going to invite you back.
Thank you very much. I'd
Thank
love
you
to
so
be
much
back.
for showing up on the Karas Wright Show.
Thank you.